The rain fell in heavy sheets, drumming against the hood of the sleek black Bentley stranded on the side of a quiet Vermont road. Eleanor Voss, her silver hair pulled into a tight bun, gripped the steering wheel, her knuckles pale. The dashboard glowed with a warning light, and the engine's faint sputter had long since faded into silence. She was late for a meeting in Burlington, one that could secure her company's future. A billionaire tech mogul, Eleanor was used to control, to precision, to the world bending to her will. But here, on this muddy stretch of Route 7, with the autumn leaves swirling in the wind, she was powerless, her phone dead. Her driver unreachable. The nearest town, a good 2 miles away. She pressed her forehead against the cool leather of the wheel, the weight of her empire suddenly heavier than ever. Then, through the blur of rain on her windshield, she saw a small figure approaching a girl, no older than 10, in a yellow raincoat, her hood slipping back to reveal damp curls. She carried a battered toolbox, too big for her tiny hands, and she was walking straight toward the car. Eleanor squinted, her heart catching. The girl's lips moved, but no sound reached Eleanor's ears. Not because of the rain, but because Eleanor had been deaf since a childhood illness stole her hearing at age 6. She relied on lip reading, on the sharp instincts that had built her fortune. But this girl was signing. Her small hands danced in the air, spelling out, "Can I help?" Eleanor froze, her breath fogging the window. A deaf child out here alone, offering to fix her car? It was absurd. Yet something in the girl's wide, earnest eyes held her still. What would you do, stranded and helpless, when a stranger offers hope? Share your thoughts in the comments below. The girl's name was Lila, as Eleanor would soon learn. She tapped on the window, her toolbox clunking against the Bentley's door. Eleanor hesitated, then opened it, the rain soaking her silk blouse instantly. Lila's hands moved again, signing with a clumsy but practiced grace. "I know cars," she said, her fingers spelling each word with care. "My dad taught me. Pop the hood." Eleanor blinked, caught off guard by the confidence in this child's face. She didn't know why she trusted her. Maybe it was the way Lila's raincoat was patched at the elbows or the smudge of grease already on her cheek, but she reached for the hood release. The rain poured harder as Lila peered into the engine, her small hands moving with surprising deftness. She pointed to a loose wire, then to a puddle beneath the car. "Battery's wet," she signed. "I can fix it." Eleanor watched, half expecting the girl to fumble, but Lila worked with focus, wrapping the wire in electrical tape from her toolbox, her fingers trembling from the cold. Eleanor wanted to ask where she'd come from, why she was out here alone, but the rain and Lila's concentration kept her quiet. Instead, she noticed the girl's hearing aids, small and worn, nestled in her ears. They were old, probably secondhand, the kind you'd find in a thrift store bin. Eleanor's chest tightened. She'd spent millions on her own cochlear implants, state-of-the-art, barely visible. Yet this child, with her outdated aids, was braving the storm to help a stranger. When Lila finished, she slammed the hood and signed, "Try it now!" Eleanor turned the key, and the engine roared to life. She exhaled, a shaky laugh escaping her lips. Lila grinned, her face bright despite the rain. "You're welcome," she signed, then turned to go. But Eleanor couldn't let her lemonade yet. "Wait," she called, her voice rough from disuse. "Let me give you something." Lila shook her head, signing, "It's okay, I like helping." Eleanor's throat tightened, a small act, a child's kindness, and yet it felt like the world had shifted. They ended up at a diner a mile down the road, the kind with checkered floors and coffee that smelled like burnt toast. Eleanor insisted on buying Lila a hot chocolate, and the girl didn't argue, though her eyes darted nervously to the clock above the counter. They sat in a booth by the window, the rain still falling outside. Eleanor signed slowly, her hands rusty but clear. "Why were you out there?" Lila sipped her drink, her fingers leaving smudges on the mug. "I live nearby," she signed. "Saw your car. Dad says if you can help, you should." Eleanor raised an eyebrow. "Your dad lets you wander in storms?" Lila's smile faltered, and she looked down, her hands still. "He's gone," she signed after a pause. "Cancer. 2 years ago." Eleanor's breath caught. She knew Lost-her own parents, long gone, had left her to claw her way up alone. But this girl, so young, carrying a toolbox and a grief too big for her small frame, who takes care of you? Eleanor asked. Lila shrugged, her fingers moving again. My aunt. She works nights at the hospital. I'm okay. But her eyes said otherwise lonely, searching, like she was waiting for something she couldn't name. Eleanor leaned forward, her hands trembling as she signed, You're brave, Lila! The girl's cheeks flushed, and she hid a shy smile behind her mug. They talked more about Lila's love for fixing things, her dream of being a mechanic, the way her dad used to play Johnny Cash on an old radio while they worked on cars together. Eleanor shared a little too how she'd built her company from nothing, how silence had shaped her life. Lila's eyes widened, not at Eleanor's wealth, but at her story of learning to lip-read in a world that didn't care. You're like me, Lila signed, her hands quick with excitement. You get it. Eleanor's heart stuttered. She hadn't felt this kind of connection in years since she'd buried herself in boardrooms and balance sheets. Lila reached across the table, her small hand brushing Eleanor's, a gesture so simple yet so heavy with trust. When was the last time a stranger's kindness made you feel seen? Tell us in the comments, we'd love to hear your story. The diner's warmth wrapped around them, but Eleanor couldn't shake the feeling that Lila needed more than a hot chocolate. She watched the girl fidget, her hearing aids glinting under the fluorescent lights. Do they work well? Eleanor signed, nodding toward Lila's ears. Lila's face clouded. Sometimes, she signed, they're old, sounds are fuzzy, but I'm used to it. Eleanor's jaw tightened. She knew what it was like to strain for sound, to feel the world muffled behind a wall of silence. She'd clawed her way to solution surgeries, implants, the best technology money could buy. But Lila? Lila had no one to fight for her. Eleanor's mind raced. She could help. She could pay for new hearing aids, the kind that would let Lila hear birdsong or the hum of an engine clearly for the first time. But when she offered, Lila shook her head. I don't take charity, she signed, her chin lifting with a stubborn pride that reminded Eleanor of herself at that age. I help people. I don't need help. Eleanor wanted to argue, but something in Lila's eyes stopped her, a fierce independence, a need to be more than a sob story. Instead, she tried a different approach. What if you worked for it? She signed. Lila tilted her head, curious. Work? Eleanor nodded. My company's in Burlington. We're always looking for bright minds. You could intern, learn about tech, cars, whatever you want. Earn the money for new aids yourself. Lila's eyes lit up, but then she hesitated, her hands still. I'm just a kid, she signed, and I'm, you know. She pointed to her ears. Eleanor leaned closer, her hands steady now. So was I, she signed. And I built an empire. You fixed my Bentley in a storm. You're not just anything. Lila's lips parted, and for a moment, she looked like she might cry. But instead, she nodded, a small, determined nod. Eleanor felt something break open inside her wall she'd built around her heart, cracked by a child's courage. It wasn't just about hearing aids. It was about giving Lila a chance to be heard in every way that mattered. That night, as Eleanor drove Lila home to her aunt's small clapboard house, she made a decision. She'd fund a scholarship, one for kids like Lila kids the world overlooked. And she'd start with the girl who'd fixed her car, and, somehow, her heart. The weeks that followed were a blur of change. Lila started coming to Eleanor's office after school, her toolbox traded for a laptop and a badge that read Junior Intern. She soaked up everything coding, engineering, even the coffee runs Eleanor insisted she didn't have to do. The office staff adored her, sneaking her donuts and teaching her to sign their names. Eleanor watched from her glass-walled office, her heart swelling each time Lila laughed, her hearing aids still crackling but her spirit louder than ever. One crisp November morning, just before Thanksgiving, Eleanor called Lila into her office. She'd been working on something, a prototype, a new kind of hearing aid, smaller, clearer, designed with Lila in mind. It wasn't ready yet, but Eleanor had pulled strings, called in favors. She handed Lila a box with a new pair of aids, the best on the market, paid for through the internship program so Lila wouldn't feel it was charity. Lila's hands shook as she opened it, her eyes wide. "For me?" she signed. Eleanor nodded, signing back. "You earned it." When Lila put them on, her face changed, first shock, then wonder, as the world came alive with sound. She heard the hum of the office, the clink of coffee mugs, Eleanor's voice saying her name. Lila's eyes filled with tears, and she threw her arms around Eleanor, her small body trembling. Eleanor held her own eyes burning. For the first time in decades, she felt like she was hearing something to not sound, but purpose. The scholarship launched that week, named after Lila's dad, a quiet tribute to the man who'd taught her to fix things. At the launch event, Lila stood beside Eleanor, signing her speech to a room full of people. The crowd applauded, but Lila's eyes were on Eleanor, her smile brighter than any spotlight. As they left the stage, Lila signed, "Thank you for hearing me." Eleanor's throat closed and she signed back, "You made me hear again too. It was true." Lila's kindness, her small act on a rainy road, had opened Eleanor's heart to a world she'd forgotten, a world of connection, of hope, of giving without expecting anything back. As the Vermont leaves fell outside, Eleanor knew she'd never be the same. Kindness has a way of changing us, of opening our hearts when we least expect it. Has kindness ever changed your life? Share your story in the comments below. We might turn it into our next video. This story is a work of fiction or dramatized for entertainment purposes. While it may be inspired by real human emotions and events, all characters, names, and situations are either entirely fictional or modified for storytelling. This content fully complies with YouTube's community guidelines and is intended to inspire, not mislead.